Hello, good afternoon. I'm Rebecca, Bex, as everyone obviously here calls me. And today I'm going to run through basically future performance marketing trends and innovations, a little bit of a mix between social bits and bobs, influence marketing, why we should diversify out of just generic Google Ads campaigns. I am a senior performance marketing manager here at Modo25. Worked here for about 4 years now. But one of the things I think at the moment is the biggest challenge that I'm facing in marketing in general, also, which I think clients are facing, is increasing costs of Google Ads. So that's why I wanted to bring today why we need to be diversifying outside of that, and kind of what the main trends and innovations are, what we're predicting are the main trends and innovations. It is freezing in the office today, by the way, hence the big furry coats. And if I start coughing, it's that time of year, so apologies. But yeah, I'm going to start running through the presentation now. Try and keep it quite short and sweet because Black Friday week is upon us. So I'm conscious people are very busy. But nevertheless, we'll go through the main points anyway. So like I said, I think what I'm noticing and what clients are noticing is that there is like a struggle to keep up with these emerging trends and innovations that seem to be happening. So if you are in that kind of minefield at the moment, you're definitely not alone. It seems to be a constant conversation that we're having amongst clients at the moment here. And overall, the landscape seems to be shifting. So I've worked in digital marketing now for about 8 or 9 years, which makes me feel like a grandma. But the way it was versus what it's like now is so massively different. I feel especially within like the last probably 3 to 5 years is when I've noticed the biggest changes, especially in my role. So I work mainly within paid search and paid social, and kind of what I used to do, that the role or like the job spec is just so different from what it would be now in today's day and age. And a lot of this is down to things like automation, AI, personalized marketing, and things like that. So these things are not optional anymore. Like these are really essential in today's day and age in marketing. These are the main few points that we're going to go through in today's webinar. So exploring the key trends, solutions, and actionable insights to help you kind of try and stay competitive in this very wild world that we're living in. So firstly, the rise of AI and machine learning, and the growth of social commerce. So TikTok shop, Instagram shop, those types of things. The power of short form video, which I'm sure if you work in marketing, you will have been told time and time again the importance of short form video. But I really wanted to highlight that as it is a massive trend. Obviously has been and is going to continue to be. The evolution of influencer marketing. And again, like I said at the very start, but just diversifying beyond a Google Ads campaign setup. So to start with the rise of machine learning. So one of the things I think businesses are struggling with is the amount of like data that you have available in today's day and age. I guess the main one here that I think is prominent for a lot of what I do, but a lot of kind of what clients do. Like I said, a lot of my work is on Google Ads. And I think when we audit accounts and things like that, one of the main things that we will look at is, are they using automated bidding and things like that? So that is something that we really need to be pushing on in that sense of marketing. So looking where you can at like machine learning and automation in terms of what the platform can do with all of the data, in just maximizing that overall performance. So if you are a client that optimizes towards a return on ad spend, which again, just throwing back to my experience, a lot of my clients do, we need to make sure that all of our campaigns are set up geared towards targeting that core KPI. Obviously the goal of that being to improve the efficiency, and obviously reduce waste as well. So that's one that we've heard a lot about. We've heard all of these different things about automation, AI. I think for me, if I was a business, whether it's a small, medium, large business, it's looking at a range of different automation tools that you can be using, looking at different machine learning, especially, and again, I am focusing this primarily on Google Ads, and this is purely because it's something I've noticed when I've been doing audits and things like that, is that clients don't seem to be geared up to target their main KPI. They might be optimizing towards clicks and things like that, which isn't necessarily what the business goal is. So it's making sure that you're really making the most of the like capabilities of these platforms. One of the bigger ones that I wanted to touch on from my point of view is the growth of, like I said, TikTok shop, Instagram shop, just the overall social commerce. So we are in a little bit of a corridor, so if it's noisy, there's not too much we can do about that. So yeah, there's quite a bit of background noise. But as you probably know, if you do work in marketing, if you don't, then get to know traditional e-commerce channels. So when I say traditional e-commerce, I'm saying Google ads, like Meta ads. They are what I would class as like a traditional marketing platform, because it's what most clients that I've ever worked on, it's like their bread and butter of marketing. But they are so overcrowded now. So I mean, you'll probably know yourself if you go on like Instagram or TikTok. But you do see a lot more ads than you probably once ever did, especially at this time of year as well. A lot of organic content gets kind of diluted because so many companies are pushing ads out on like Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And obviously Google, that was once, I suppose, the biggest revenue driver for all clients, because you'd put some ads on, and back in the day I felt like you could get a maximum return on ad spend, whereas things have massively changed now, and it's not that easy. Things are so much more competitive, there's so much more competition. Google will naturally inflate their bids anyway, and so it's becoming really challenging, and that's why I really wanted to kind of highlight the importance of social commerce. So leveraging things like influencer partnerships and shoppable ads, and also just making sure that if you are a company that does sell products, it might be like a lead gen company, but a lot of kind of retail businesses, if you're on Instagram, TikTok, that you've got those shops set up. The main aim of it really is to just shorten that journey to get people through to conversion. And if you're like me, you're probably a lot less patient than you once were. So if I want something, I want to be able to click and buy it then. And I think that we've come a long way. And there was a time where when these things first came out, I was even a little bit afraid to click on an ad on Instagram and buy it, or click on something on TikTok shop and buy it, because it's different. It's not what you're used to. But people are becoming more and more used to that, especially at the younger demographic. But I know even like my mum and things like that now, she will even go through things like that. Because she's got the confidence in it now. So it's just really making sure that you are utilizing these things, just helping boost those overall conversion rates. The power of short form video. So as I mentioned, this has been a trend for quite a while now, but really wanted to just highlight the genuine importance of investing in video content and being able to use that short form content, especially on things like Instagram and TikTok. Brands will struggle to keep up with the demand for this constant need for engaging content. I use TikTok a lot. I know a lot of my friends use TikTok a lot, and you go on that almost for like a bit of an escape, but you can get sucked in, and you just constantly want fresh content. Like you constantly want to be fed new funny things, or things that are educational, things that you're interested in, and the algorithms on those platforms really do understand kind of what you're engaging with. So it's making sure that you've got things that would then be fed into people who are interested in, I don't know, mine's probably all about like breakups and stuff like that. So if you can kind of play on to things like this, and you've got that in your content. But it is super important to be investing in this type of content. And the reason why is purely because you can grab someone's attention so quickly within such a short period of time. So investing in video ads that can be used, like you can obviously sponsor that content on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever it might be. But if you're putting out an ad that, I mean, you could be putting it out to your target audience, but if that content looks a little bit off, it doesn't look high quality, it's not immediately engaging, then someone is going to scroll past that. Like it's just, we've seen it through stats, we've seen it just even as a consumer, you will know that if you see a video and it straight away doesn't look engaging, you're just going to scroll past, because we want things to catch our attention immediately. And I feel like this is something that a lot of companies or a lot of clients that I've worked with in the past have maybe at first struggled to understand the benefit of doing so, because they've been relied on, or they rely on Google ads, or, you know, we can just get an image from the website and kind of, or just like a nice lifestyle image and pop that out on Instagram. But it is super important to make sure that you are staying on top of these types of trends if you want to remain competitive within the market. Other things as well that I've noticed are really good, mainly from like an Instagram point of view, to start with, but also obviously moving on to TikTok, storytelling being a big one. So you can get like user testimonials and things like that. That's always super useful. And the other thing is the authenticity. So you probably will see on TikTok, Instagram, a lot of content now is kind of like behind the scenes or branded content rather than, or like kind of employee content rather than it being purely like product or business focused. And I think the benefits of doing things like that is that people do genuinely buy from people. And if you can see kind of behind the scenes, or you can kind of relate to somebody's brand, you've got more of a connection. And I think that it's something that I've noticed with kind of organic social media clients that I will run that type of activity for. If we ever put out content that is more about the business owner or the people who work there, the engagement on that type of content is always so much stronger than if it's just a before and after picture or a transformation or a picture of a dress. Like, you know, someone in a dress, they might be really visually appealing, but the video content, and especially kind of the employee content, which is humorous, will get more engagement. The next one being the evolution of influencer marketing. So one of my clients actually mentioned this week that she, as a business, they decided to invest. It wasn't a huge budget. It was a couple of grand into an influencer who was not by no means a huge influencer, but very relevant to their audience. And they maybe put a couple of grand in, but they did get about 20k back, and all of those products that this particular influencer wore sold out within that night. And I think the business kind of took that as a bit of a risk of let's try it, but the impact they've seen off the back of it, you know, it's worth testing. So it's kind of, it's something that does take time. It's not an easy one to kind of come up with an influencer campaign and pick the right influencers and go through their engagement and making sure it's the right fit for the brand. But it does work. And if you can find people who are kind of like brand advocates for your brand and are going to pull in new customers and push out a message which is authentic and people believe in, then you're going to see the impact. And this is not saying, you know, try and get a brand deal with, like at the time when Molly-Mae was massive, because she would have charged an absolute fortune. And I think from what I've seen and probably how I shop as a consumer, but if I did see somebody like a big, almost like a celeb or a huge influencer putting out, I don't know, it's like a Dyson Airwrap or something, I probably wouldn't buy it because I'd be so aware that it's a branded paid advertisement. Whereas if it was somebody who was, I suppose, less well known, but the content was really authentic, I'd be more inclined to buy it. And that's what this client did. They it was just a well-known, it was a plus size model. They sell plus size clothes, and it really worked, and the return was really good. So I think things like this, it's something that you might find a risk because you think, oh well, it's just an influencer, why am I going to give them a couple of grand? It's not going to do anything. But actually, until you take that risk, you're not going to know. It is just a slog in terms of finding a right influencer who's going to reflect your brand well. And then just down here on the right, just kind of focusing on building longer term relationships with influencers, like I said, that align with your brand. So don't just try not to pick somebody just because they're a big name. It's probably not going to resonate with your audience. You'd rather work with somebody who has a lower number of followers but strong engagement, because people are more likely to believe them and the content is going to look authentic. I've just popped this down here as well, just highlighting on the micro influencers. So there's different pots of influencers. There's nano, micro, macro. Micro obviously offer highly engaged audiences, and their content is usually more engaging, I suppose, rather than somebody who's a big name and it just sounds like they're reading off a script. And then diversifying beyond Google Ads. So like I said, I've worked in Google Ads for about, I want to say about 8 to 9 years now. And I still feel even now a lot of my clients, or a lot of clients that we work with, are overly dependent on Google Ads as a channel because this is what they've always done and it's always worked. But like I said, the competition's so much higher now, the costs are so much higher, the way in which people buy is so different. Like I wouldn't just search for a black dress now and see an ad and click and buy it. Whereas back in the day, that kind of behavior was a lot more normal. Now you'd look at reviews, you'd look, oh, this person's worn something like this. You maybe do a bit of, oh, I've got a big event, I'll have a little look on Pinterest. There's so many different channels and touch points now. And probably because there is so much more competition, people will skip from site to site. I definitely do. Well, on this site, I can't get free delivery, so I need to go onto this site. Oh, but this one, I don't get free return. So people do a lot more research because people like to get the best deal, cost of living. So yeah, but what, like I said, I am noticing is a lot of businesses are still overly dependent on Google Ads, and as in doing so, you could be missing out on other channels that may drive additional engagement and conversion. So like I said, with the client who recently just invested a couple of grand into the influencer, and the results that they got off the back of that was obviously amazing. So it's just looking at what else could we do outside of, they could have just said, oh, can you just put an extra 2 grand into Google, which we could have done. Like we've got money to spend, but would we have got that immediate 20 grand back within like a few hours? Maybe not. So yeah, just highlighting the importance of that really. Like I said, just making sure you have got a balanced marketing strategy, so you are across multiple touch points, paid social ads. So I mean, Facebook, I feel like we don't speak about too much anymore, but it's still highlighting the importance. I suppose depending on your audience, it might be the right fit for your brand. But like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they'll allow you to engage and kind of push messaging out to people who you would classify as your target audience, I suppose. Obviously, organic content, that's basically free marketing. You don't actually have to spend on it, but you can create a really good community off the back of. And you know, if you're putting out kind of fun, engaging content that gets shares and gets likes, it's about building your overall brand, which will have a knock-on effect on your other channels, your brand search, your direct traffic, all of these things. It will have an impact on. Again, it's not a quick fix, it's time consuming, but the benefits that you will reap off the back are actually really rewarding. And obviously, I think a lot of clients that I work with still do invest quite a bit into email marketing, but just making sure that you've got like well kind of set up funnels and things like that when you do look at email marketing. In terms of just the main key takeaways, really, I suppose taking a step back and looking at what video content you do have, and if you are running ads on social, I would highly recommend looking at what ads you are putting out, because it is really expensive. It is really expensive on social now, especially at this time of year. It's super expensive. Same with Google. That if you're putting an ad out that maybe isn't the best, you might know it's not the best. I would say pause the budget, put it into video, hold back, and then invest when you invest into that, like that advert when you do have really highly engaging content. The Google costs will continue to rise. So I suppose marketing managers or like directors just taking a step back and maybe having a little look into GA4 and spotting any opportunities of channels that are underperforming and where you could potentially pop some budget in to try and increase beyond relying on a Google Ads campaign. Making sure you're shoppable, as you touched on at the start, but things like having an Instagram shop which people can just click on immediately, and if they're on your Instagram profile and buy products through the platform, it's a quick win. I don't know why you wouldn't have that set up if you do have products that you can sell. So you're making sure that you've got just basic things like this set up. Branching out into the benefits of influence marketing, like I said, it is really time consuming. We've done it in the past, and there are platforms that you can use to kind of identify influencers and their engagement rates and their followers, and making sure that they've not got spammy followers and things like that, because you want somebody who's an engaging user and people are going to interact with that content, they're the people that you want. So there are platforms that you can put different Instagram handles in and they'll spit out their engagement figures and things like that. But finding, and I suppose then reaching out to those, a lot of them just might ignore you. It is really tough, but it is definitely worth having a look at kind of people who you would want to work with and partner with. And like I said, even if it's just a test, until you kind of branch out into these other options as a business, I feel like that's going to hold you back. You'll think, oh, just put the extra couple into Google. But yeah, I just really wanted to highlight, and I suppose that little case study of the client earlier in the week. And then finally, and this is just one from doing audits recently on multiple Google Ads clients, is just making sure that you are making use of automated bidding on Google. Recently, we've done a test with a client of max clicks versus maximize conversions. Their core goal is conversion. So that's obviously what we wanted to be optimizing towards. And obviously the results that we've been able to present back to the client are massively in favor of maximizing towards conversion and much lower CPA, like cost per acquisition. If you think that a different bidding strategy is the best, you can set up A/B tests between campaigns. So a lot of this is about testing and making sure that you are using right bidding strategies for your overall goals. And I think that was the whistle stop tour of the main trends and a few little takeaways at the end. So yeah, I'll leave it there. And then if any questions, how do you recommend? So the first one is, how do you recommend staying ahead of competitors? Is my screen still sharing? I don't think it is it? How do you recommend staying ahead of competitors who are delivering these strategies? So I've made a couple of notes based on, I guess, some of the information that I've put in the meeting, just in case any questions had come across. So obviously there's so many different things that you can do to try and stay ahead of competitors. We've actually just recently done some competitor analysis across a couple of clients. One of the things that I would really recommend at this moment in time, this is something that we've noticed for one of our clients, and this is, I suppose, a no-brainer, but actually spending, again, it's a time-consuming one, but taking some time just to step back and go through your competitors and look at what their USPs are. So we've got clients who, we're going to Black Friday. Our performance actually dropped last week when we launched the sale, but their main competitors' promo was like up to 50% off, and we had up to 15% off. And it's things like that at this time of year, I suppose it's different product margins and things like that, but it might just help you understand maybe why you haven't seen an uplift in performance that you thought you would. But other things that I would recommend to stay ahead of competitors who are maybe leveraging some of these things are building long-term partnerships. So collaborating with influencers who really truly align with your brand values, rather than just focusing on reach, which I think a lot of people think of when they think of influencers. It's like, who's got the biggest reach, who's got the most followers. Actually, no, it's collaborating with people who maybe have a smaller number, but their engagement is much stronger. So for example, like micro influencers, they'll be targeting like niche communities, which have really highly engaged audiences. Another thing that I'd be recommending, if you don't have, but if you do sell products, especially at this time of year, because I'm always looking for them, because there's so many questions that I have when I'm looking for presents and things, but utilizing AI chatbots. I don't have a list of all the different chatbots that you can use, but I'm sure if you Googled, you'd be able to find a list of different chatbots that you can use. But people, especially around this time of year, and probably going into January when there's New Year sales, will have questions about delivery, about returns, about the price of something, about a promo that they've seen. So making sure that you've got kind of like some form of AI kind of chatbot that offers a customer service support, really, really important. And then the other thing that I'd recommend is investing in brand building, just because of the knock-on effect that will have on your overall business. So storytelling, a consistent brand voice. Like, we've just updated some assets on some of our Google Performance Max campaigns, because everything was different on LinkedIn. It was different to what it was different on Meta, and then the Performance Max on Google was completely different. So just making sure that you've got consistent branding, consistent brand voice. And I think looking at kind of engagement on things like social media with your audience will set you apart from what maybe tech just can't replace. So having somebody that's maybe dedicated to building that brand on socials and things like that, I think is really important. How can brands identify and build partnerships with influencers who truly align with their values? So, as I mentioned, building relationships with influencers is really difficult. Like it is really time consuming, I'm not going to lie. But I think one of the first things that we do when we are looking to kind of partner influencers with a client is get an understanding of what that client's values are. So for example, if it's a sustainable brand, making sure that, right, that's one of the values. We need to look at people who are within sustainability, and just making sure that these are really clear, so you know that you need people who are within this space. This is one of our core values. Setting campaign goals, I suppose, deciding actually what you want to achieve. Is it brand awareness? Is it sales? Is it a bit of community engagement? And then that will also help kind of shape who you go out looking for. The content audit, so reviewing their content, seeing if their tone, message, all of the visuals that they put out resonates with your brand identity as well. The engagement of the quality. So like I said, it's looking for those influencers that have meaningful interactions rather than just high followers, because it's those people who are going to get better engagement on the post, and then hopefully that would go into sales for your business. And like I said, there are tools that you can use. So we've used one in the past called Upfluence, where you can kind of put like an Instagram handle in, and that will spit out like the authenticity of followers. So it will kind of highlight if there's a lot of spammy followers and things like that, the engagement rate, versus things like the industry standards. I believe within that platform you would see past collabs as well, which would be interesting to see if it's something that would align. What metrics should businesses prioritize when evaluating the success of an omni-channel strategy? So obviously a lot of what I used to do would be monitoring purely on a return on ad spend. We now look at things like customer lifetime value, sales by channel. I think if I was to pick a few main KPIs to monitor, customer lifetime value would definitely be one of them. So measuring the value that a customer brings across all channels over time. I also think it is really important to look at your social media engagement rate. I think that will indicate the effectiveness of your presence that you've got on socials, but probably one that gets left behind a little bit because we all are so focused on, which naturally, but like the sales, the revenue, the return on ad spend. But I think it's always interesting to kind of see what you're like on socials and what kind of your brand is saying. Sales by channel, so tracking revenue to each channel, so you can kind of identify which are strong, which are weak points in the strategy. You can use like conversion path reports in GA4 and kind of check the traffic acquisition reports as well. But this would be a good one to start with, to understand which areas are weak and which areas you probably do need to invest a little bit more like time or budget into. And then obviously, like I said, just because my background is primarily paid, ROAS by channel is obviously really important. So looking at kind of maybe what we're spending on Meta versus what we're spending on Google, and actually the return is significantly higher on Google and we're massively limited. So at this point in time, should we be pulling some of that budget from Meta and putting it into Google as well? But I think looking at the ROAS by channel, if that's one of your core KPIs, is super important. And then maybe one more question. What emerging social platforms should marketers be keeping an eye on for higher conversions? What emerging? So there's obviously loads of different new social platforms that have come out. There's like Lemonade, there's Threads and things like this. I would still really, really bang the drum on TikTok. I feel like that's a platform which people still to this day think, oh, it's just kids dancing around, and it's absolutely not at all. And on these you can integrate shopping features, so you can use TikTok shop. Instagram as well, I would say, driving the importance of that with highly engaged content. I know it's not an emerging social platform, but things are constantly developing on that platform that you need to make sure you're ahead of the curve, because it does continue to evolve. and you want to obviously streamline those purchase paths to drive higher conversions. But yeah, TikTok would be my go-to, but that could just be preference. I think that's it. So thank you very much for your time. I hope I'm off tomorrow, so I hope you all have a great Friday and a lovely weekend, and a fabulous Black Friday, of course. Bye.